I think we were all surprised by how easy cooperation was in the early days. When 2047 occurred, the first thing everyone thought was technical issues. Since all our ground connections cut out, it was only when we reeled in the Forkfish array and got our suits on for an EVA that we realized we weren't orbiting the Earth anymore. We were all shocked, of course. There had been no warning. None of the usual K-class scenarios. Of course, all the O5s but one were gone, along with most of the command hierarchy. There was no one left to send those messages in the first place. The GOC contacted us first, actually. One of their Bastion stations was in close orbit to us, and the first thing they asked us was, "Do you have anything to do with this?" Having a command structure on the moon and fewer facilities outside the Earth's moon system helped them recover much faster than we did. Everyone's first instinct, even dealing with the Soviets and Chinese, was curiosity, and perhaps fear. Anything was possible, and it took us a month for the GRU and the SIDS to contact us after, well... Anyways, we on Fork 3 were quite lucky in that we weren't containing anything. Several of the other forks were lost early on to containment breaches. I suppose what always surprises me is how little people know about the real extent of recovery. The UN forces on the moon were quite proactive about gathering and recovering civilians, but the military and covert presence of the various groups of interest, Foundation included, was spread most of the way across the solar system. A particular concern was getting back in touch with all the lost FTL ships out there. Yeah, faster than light. One of the worst kept secrets of the recovery, I'm afraid. Foundation never had developed true FTL travel. We used 1822 to get around the system quickly, but otherwise our spacecraft were purely conventional. The GOC and GRU had to turn to other, more arcane methods, the GRU especially. Everyone saw the recovery of the GOCS Jaeger, but the Soviets had had FTL prototypes in orbit since at least the 50s. I won't claim to understand the science behind them. I'm not sure the Russians entirely did themselves, but they ran off some kind of, I've heard the phrase, human-initiated quantum teleportation? But that's entirely incorrect. It's something to do with psychics. Yeah, anyway, suffice it to say, when the Earth disappeared, I don't know what you'd call them, but the psychic batteries powering the things went too, leaving several dozen engineless ships drifting all over the system, as far out as Hera. The GRU had sent so many of them up that they'd spread out too far to be easily recovered by more conventional Soviet vessels. Which is where we came in. Or so we thought. I can't recall if we decided to go after the Nikola Fyodorov on our own, or if the orders came from the UN. Regardless, it was our first attempted joint mission with the GOC. Truthfully told, we could have recovered them on our own, but we were all a little worried about engaging a ship powered by psychic ghosts. Golden age of space exploration it may have been, but we'd all heard the rumors about the dangers and instability of Soviet anomalous technology. We arrived at the plaque in the asteroid belt within about 20 minutes, by which time all the GOC agents were looking pretty queasy. Everyone in GA3 was quite used to it using 1822. The purpose of the task force was rapid response to orbital containment breaches after all, but to instantly jump in between two different planets without even a sense of movement, it takes out a lot of even the most well-trained agent. They were even more surprised to see the size of a Fort Gate at the transfer point. By that point, the asteroid mining operations were well underway. It took us 7 hours to home in on the Feodorov's beacon, with your captain taking us in all the way. That was a strange thing about just about every mission we ran during the recovery. No one ever had major technical issues beyond the engine or navigational failures, for the most part. But people were scared, really scared. Any ship with a decent radio telescope could see that the Earth was simply gone. For a long time, a lot of the main civilian channels were just unusable. I recall from when I was in the hospital, after there was a woman's voice in particular. I believe she was from one of the Chinese research stations, just sobbing into the radio. None of us spoke Cantonese, but she just left the channel open for about a day and a half, getting softer and softer before the signal cut out. I assume she made it. Of course, those were the hard times. As far as we were concerned, the veil of secrecy was still in place. The GOC could pass for UN representatives, but we couldn't reveal ourselves to civilians. There were a great many times when, well, we stopped scanning civilian channels after a while, especially when... You know what? I've been dancing around the issue. We left the Fyodorov to die. Are you happy? Is this the big admission you wanted? There, you have it. I'm not going to make any excuses. The Ethics Committee and the UNOC Central Court have cleared us of any misdoings. When we arrived, we moved to less than 20 meters off, matched velocities, and suited up to cross. The Russians said their airlocks wouldn't be compatible with ours. Their anti-particle field was still in effect, a sensible choice, given the risk of impact with dust clouds or other small objects in an asteroid field. We didn't question it, even though it played hell with our anomalous activity sensors as we got close. There was a reason the Soviets didn't make contact. The GRU had received orders from the last remnants of the Soviet power structure to assume the Foundation responsibility until proved otherwise, and the captain of the Fyodorovs actually went along with it. We came back much later, opened up the wreck. He'd locked himself in the bridge and drained the oxygen out of the rest of the ship, and then, deliberately, I'd been outside the hull for 15 seconds when the top of my head was ripped off, before I passed out and saw one of my GOC agents turn on his welding torch and cut his own faceplate open. When the ship's engines died, they didn't go quiet. Whatever goddamn unholy power supply they were using to run it had gone berserk, and the entire thing was surrounded by psionic anomalies. Nothing off the charts or unprecedented, but our instruments didn't show them because of the AP field, and the Russians told us nothing. There were 18 of us on that ship, 12 from the Foundation, 6 from the GOC, 11 came back. 4 of those, myself included, in need of serious medical treatment. 2 died in the hospital on Minerva base. The Fyodorovs had a crew of 45, not including the captain. And the Soviets denied it. A miscommunication, they said. The stress of the situation causing instability in the captain, they said, and the UN forgave them. I've often heard people complain that the Foundation is, given the circumstances, unnecessary isolationist, that we've kept too many secrets. Well, when you tried to open up and help our fellow man, 55 people died. I don't know who gave the order to fire on the Nikolai Fyodorov. I knew the flight recorder was damaged, and I don't particularly care. They were right to do so.